evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Olumide Olayinka, and I'm one of the organizers of the Lagos Startup Week. For those who don't know what the Lagos Startup Week is, the Lagos Startup Week is a 5-day celebration, or the Startup Week is the 5-day celebration of entrepreneurship, to give more light or create more spotlights for startups within the ecosystem itself. This year is about 4th year. We've worked with so many bodies, so many VCs, so many startups, most of those you probably even hear. Today, we'll be having a couple of them in our midst. Our keynote today would be Mr. Bayo Adekanbi, who is the Chief Transformation Officer for MTN. He's also the convener, key driver of the data science Nigeria itself. We'd also be having a couple of panelists. Max.ng is the founder. Max.ng founder. Onyeka from Farm Crowdy. Vivian from MedSav. So this week itself, having a couple of events that will be happening. We usually recommend everyone should please check the updated schedule. Today is going to be happening live in Landmark, TARS. On Tuesday and Wednesday, the events will be happening at Zone Tech Park. Because like I said, the goal is to basically create a spotlight of the ecosystem, not just the island alone. Then on Thursday, we'll be doing an innovation tour across key startups. Then on Friday, we all meet back here itself. I think that's a nutshell. We'll be starting from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock is going to be open to the public. So we'll be having the leaders in tech policy dialogue between the hours of 8 and 12. That's going to include entrepreneurial support organizations, because as we speak now, Village Capital is also doing something, during the week itself. So everyone already convenes here itself. Yeah. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask. May I introduce to you Mr. Bayo Adekanbi, who is our keynote speaker. A round of applause, please.
Good evening, everyone. It's such a great pleasure joining you this evening. Startup Lagos is a great stuff because it speaks to the reality of our need as a people to start getting a lot of people to think, create new things, open new frontiers, and make this country better. So for me, I'm very excited to be here this evening. I'm sure we all look forward to learning new things and be inspired in whatever we're doing. Whether you're a founder, you're an idea creator, you're an enabler, you're an incubator or accelerator, there's so much you can all give to make the entire ecosystem in Nigeria to have more impact in driving real socioeconomic impact. So this evening, I'm meant to just do a keynote. Keynote is just share perspectives and thoughts, and I'm going to be speaking from my perspective as an intrapreneur. I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't run a business outside, but I run business within a business, creating innovation within a company that has driven multi-billionaire revenue at different times. I'll speak as someone who has spoken to a lot of startups, mentored them, listened to their ideas, or someone that also onboard them to platforms, sitting on 60 million subscriber base, we onboard a lot of new businesses. So I've picked a lot of learning and engaging startups. So my thoughts this evening will be to just share some of the things I've picked, which should be learnings and key points of ignition to accelerate or deepen the passion that you have as a startup, okay? Generally, startups are known to be the barometer of a nation because the more a nation, have people who are continuously looking for new things, the more the survival of that society is guaranteed. Because a society survives by newness of the ideas. And those newness of ideas do not come from people who are used to business as usual, people who are used to bureaucracy. The same way we do paper in the morning in 1980 is the same way we want to do it in 2020. They can't drive idea evolution that will push the nation forward. So the power to change the nation is in the hand of people like you and I, who are seated here, who are meant to continue to start up something. And startup means you start from the scratch and build, and make, and give expression to things that have high impact on socioeconomic well-being. So I think for me it's important for us to understand that. And that development of nations have also been seen in a metric called Startup Activity Index. Startup Activity Index is a measure of the evolution, quantum concentration, or density of startups in a country. So the more or the higher the Startup Activity Index, the better the prosperity of a nation or the ability of a nation to grow its GDP, that's gross domestic product. So startups are critical to our survival as a country. So don't just see what you're doing as just something you're doing by the corner, it makes no whatever. It's critical. Anyone that plays within this larger ecosystem, what you're doing is critical to our collective survival. And the theory of Ubuntu, which is a South African theory of I am because you are, we all have organic solidarity connected to each other. So the failure of one is of all. So our success as a nation is dependent on people like you who continue to push the frontiers of ideation, of thinking, and of course, not just thinking in a linear way, but thinking in a very disruptive way, asking us to do things in a way that has never been done before. So to situate my thoughts very quickly around some key themes, I'm going to share with you 7 key considerations for anyone that want to move from zero to millions. And I'm going to talk from what I've done as an entrepreneur, looking at gaps in the business and looking at what can we do to either explore an opportunity, make a difference, serve our customer in a very different way. The first thing I'm going to tell any startup, or that I always tell startups that I work with, number one, is that don't become extremely over-possessed with your idea. Don't become extremely over-possessed in a negative sense now. When nobody can, if anybody comes with a different perspective, it's like they're killing your idea. You are so insular, you are so insulated from perspective, from thoughts. For you, this idea is the best thing after sliced bread. There can never be anything like this. I've met a lot of young people, sharing ideas with me. It's great, but it does not work in real world. This is just a dream. You need to give it reality. You have to situate it within reality. How does it make money? How does it address the problem of the customer? You're just creating something out of your own fantasy. Be driven by solution. And solution means I am not thinking about myself. I'm thinking about the user. I'm thinking about the recipient. So if anyone desires to move from zero to millions, you must be open to, constructive, criticism. I tell you, it's one of the, stamp of authority for any successful startup. Being able to accept idea. Most of you are a startup. You are just starting. There are people who have gone through that path again and again with different thoughts and perspectives. So picking learnings and thoughts from them, I don't think there's anything wrong. So it's an area where I really have a lot of issues. And if you look at statistics, businesses that failed 70% of the time because the products are not meeting needs. Nobody buy a product out of fantasy. Even if they do it once. They won't do it again. It is only if it meets their need, if they can situate it within their need architecture, that will propel them to say, oh, I want this again and again and again. And that drives endearment and, of course, loyalty. And loyalty drives advocacy, where they'll proactively push your product beyond what you ever think. Even some go beyond advocacy to consumer investment, where they invest in your idea because your idea has become so wow. So be open to ideas. It's good to be obsessed about what you have, but allow other people's thought. That's why some people even advise that why not get somebody else and be, two founders, to run it together. Because somebody's, two heads are always better than one. Because somebody will always have a better perspective and thought. The second point I also need to make, if you want to move from zero to millions is that you have to be rightly motivated. What is driving your entrepreneurial or startup push? What are you looking for? What do you aim to achieve? You know, I remember a young man who left a business and he set up. The next time I saw the young man, that was just a month after he started. And I saw the card he gave to me. You know, the card was done in gold. You know, it must have cost, because I asked him question, each card costed him about 450 naira to make one complimentary card. You know, and I was asking him, young man, what are you trying to sell? You know, he told me you have to start with some effigy. Effigy means create some, you know, fake look that is appealing without substance. I said, even if you are appealing with your fake coloration, people will demystify it very quickly. They will unpack you. Everybody's looking for substance. You know, you can deceive people, get people's funds and all that, but it's not sustainable. So what is your motivation? Of course, when I look at the card, what I saw actually, you know, CEO and chairman. I was like, young man, you can't be this. You know, you can't be this. You know, so clearly, what is his motivation? The guy wants to be seen to be a big man, you know, and all that. You know, some their motivation is to make quick money. You must have the right motivation. And for me, for every great startup that I've seen, go and research it. Interesting, I have a friend who did a PhD in startup motivation. Majority of them, 90% were driven by the quest to make a difference. It was not money. It was a life of people better. And I tell you, if that is your motivation, money will just come naturally. Because money will follow the ideas. So it's important that you are rightly motivated, that you are driven by the right thing. The fourth thing I'm going to talk about is that you have to be very realistic and explore low-cost business model to kick off. You know, a statistic says in America, 70% of startups actually start from their homes. So you see somebody who wants to start up and you want to get a 4-bedroom flat in Victoria Island or in Lekki Axis, when you can actually start from your home before you start getting a small space in a co-working, you know, location. So try and evolve. You know, just you are a startup, you are starting up. Don't start your journey finished. You know what I mean? Did you get me? Don't start your journey finished. You know, you have 2 million naira to kick off. Maybe that's your savings, and all the 2 million is gone into getting an apartment. And at the end of the day, you have 3-bedroom apartment. There is nothing happening there. There's no client coming in. You are the only one waking up, moving from one room to another for 1 good year. So start small. Dream big, but start small. So for me, it's very, very important. Of course, there's always the fundamental issue around perseverance is very, very tough. You know, and I look at the way we manage a lot of startups who come with ideas. Oh, I want to piggyback on your network to reach these people. People come often and often. Some give up. Some are persistent. They're consistent. And I tell you, it takes time, you know, and so you have to survive your cycle of hustling. It's a cycle. If you don't complete it, the breakthrough won't happen. You must complete that cycle. You know, don't expect it. That's why, you know, it is a startup. You know, the only thing, like they say, that start from the top down is a grave. You understand? It's from the grave start up and then it goes down. But every other thing, it start down and it goes up. So because you're a startup, there must that be that understanding that I must persevere the pain of creating something that doesn't exist before. The traditional competition, mental competition, your product has no, you know, reference, so people will challenge it. You know, I remember a lot of young chaps, you know, 2012, 2013, bring some wild ideas, you know, oh, can we drive this on your network? This doesn't make sense. Today, these guys are multi-millionaire in US dollars because they persevered. They kept, you know, sharing their ideas. They held forth. And I think that's the spirit of somebody who wants to move from zero to millions. And of course, number 4 is the fact that, like, you know, to conclude that, there's a very popular quote from Babe Ruth, a baseball legend, who said, it's hard to be the person who never gives up. It's very hard. Someone who sent an idea today, we don't need the idea. the guy will refine the idea again, and send it again. I'm telling you a practical story of a young man who is doing well today. He started sharing his idea from 2012. We embedded him on our network 2015. But each time he comes, we tell him this does not make sense. But you know what this guy would do? He will go look for another case, he send it again. If he sees something similar in another country, he would take the case study sent to us. We kept receiving the mails. To the time we felt, let's do a trial. And truly the trial convinced us. Which takes me to another point around have quality thing to offer. A lot of too much shout in this country today. Everybody talks, and all that. Like Page said, always deliver more than is expected. Come with something that when people touch it, is quality, is well done. One of the problems I've seen, and I'm being very, very frank with some, startups I've seen, especially in technology space, is that, everybody believes that everybody will just accept them the way they are. No. There are freelancers who you can contact, and by next morning, they will deliver. So if you are competing with those people, then you must come with something much more. It's not sentiment. It's not about, I'm your brother, use me. I'm your brother, use me, I use your service. It's not working because you have not done it well. So if it's what's being done, then it's what being done well. So I think that for me is very, very important, that because there is no marketing, no endorsements, no social media buzzword will be sufficient to cover up for a wrong product. It just got to be right, and you just got to do it well. Don't be scared of failure is another thing I'm going to say, which links back to the previous things I've spoken about, which is just keep pushing. They always say 90% of new businesses will fail in 4 years. What about the 10% that succeeded? Why did they succeed? Why did they succeed? It's about learning what made them to succeed and pick something from there and use that as your own narrative. So you can actually recalibrate your narrative and agree on what you're going to take for that. So don't arrive too early. I've said that again and again. I told you the story of a young man. His first card, he made each card for 450 naira. That's that's a lot of money relative to what any other person could have done. But he wanted to make a point. He wanted to show an idea. Of course, those kind of business don't succeed. Guys who will receive investors' money and the next day they've gone to buy a car. And you ask them, no, I'm the CEO, I'm the MD, so people must see me mobile. How? Packaging. You can Uberize your greatness. You can Uberize your way to greatness and find low-cost means of running the business. So don't be flashy. Just take a step at a time, And the last thing I will talk about is about taking risk, The difference between great people and small people is a risk taking. And that risk means a lot. Do what others have not done before. Go the extra mile. Break rules. Explore areas that people consider no-go areas. Do what has never been done before. Take risk. Don't let people limit you. Don't be limited by your geography, by your past, by your experience. Break frontiers. And you'll be surprised at what will come out of it. So I'm going to close with this quote by the great Winston Churchill, the man who left the Prime Minister of Britain at one of the toughest times in history. He said, never, never, never give up. If you believe you have a great dream, just keep pushing it. Before you know it, your story will become glory. And you just move from that zero to millions. So I wish you a wonderful time at this conference. And as a company, I work for MTN Nigeria. We're a company that is looking forward to partnering with people with great ideas. We just set up Innovation and Transformation Unit, which I lead. And our strategy is to look for guys with great ideas that can piggyback on our asset, our customer base, our infrastructure, to accelerate your route to market. But of course, like I've said, we're looking for quality ideas, winning ideas, and we're ready to do business everywhere you go. So thanks so much for having me, and do have a great time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David, and I'm the editor of Business Insider Sub-Saharan Africa. So we are going to go straight to the panel session. And I'd like to, Bayo, hi, please, could you come back? Okay, so as I invite the panelists, just please put your hands together for them. Bayo Adekanbi. Simon Aderinola. Simon is the country manager, is country director for Africa's Talking. Onyeka Akuma. Onyeka is the CEO and founder of Farm Crowdy. Yeah, anyway. Okay. Chinedu Atodo. Chinedu is the chief technology officer and co-founder of Max.ng. And Vivian Nwaka. Vivian is the founder, MedSaf. So we'll start with proper introductions. Just your name, what you do, and what your startup does. Start from you, Chinedu.
Thank you. So my name is Chinedu Azodo. I'm founder and CTO. I want to give you Chief Technical and Chief Technology Officer. I'm still fighting people. I'm co-founder and CTO at Max. I'm in charge of the product teams, marketing teams, operations, and a lot of what happens on the inside. What we do at Max, we provide safe, affordable, and accessible motorcycle taxis to 1 billion Africans. So we've started out in Lagos. We'll be doing our first city expansion early next year. We have about 400 drivers active any day across board. About another 600 drivers in the pipeline. So we hope to hit 2,000 by the end of the year. Super excited about what we're doing and look forward to be able to serve each and every one of you. So if you're interested in learning more about what we do, please hit me up. I'll be at the back at the end, or send me an email to chinedu@max.ng. All right.
Just before, I was at the Microsoft for Africa Fireside Chat a few weeks ago. There was an interesting stat you shared about what happens after 7 p.m.
Yes.
The percentage of your riders. So could you just share that with you?
All right, cool. So after 7 p.m., we found that after 7 p.m., especially across Lagos, more than 70% of our riders, passengers at that time, are women. So I mean, obviously, the reason we think is because we have proper identity solved, we have proper regulation, and we're able to do proper tracking. A lot of women who would ordinarily take an Okada or not just take anything find us to be a safe alternative. Our bikes are super comfortable. They're very big. So I actually drove one here. So if you want to test it out, I'm happy to give out rides at the end of the day.
Vivian?
I think I will take you up on that. I think so. So my name is Vivian Nwaka, and I'm co-founder and CEO of MedSaf. And MedSaf is a supply chain management solution for medications across Africa. What we do is two things really well. We get medications directly from manufacturers. We aggregate them, do quality control checks and balances that are in place, and then we get those medications directly to hospitals and pharmacies. So we're looking to streamline the entire procurement process, and then we're looking to give them access to safe and quality medication at an affordable price. But the other thing is around this supply chain and this movement of medications from manufacturers all the way down to even patients, we're building tools and value-added services to improve that access and that streamlined process for medications through the supply chain. And so we work with manufacturers, other distributors, and even have tools and products for patients as well to make sure that everyone has access to safe and quality medication.
Great. Thank you very much. Onyeka?
Okay. So first, please, Chini, can we exchange this? Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I had to do that. The light is affecting my eyes over there. Thanks. My name is Onyeka Akuma, and I'm the founder and CEO of Farm Crowdy. Farm Crowdy is a digital agriculture platform that connects small-scale farmers with investors for the purpose of boosting food production in the country. We went live in November of 2016, and since then till now, we've worked with about 7,000 small-scale farmers across 10 states in Nigeria. We've been able to raise a couple of millions of dollars for these farmers to work on rice, maize, cassava, soya beans farms, and chicken farms. And at the end of the day, people come on our platform invest or sponsor through our platform with these farmers, enjoy the benefit of working as partners with the farmers, getting updates in form of pictures, videos, and text about what the farmer is doing. They can also do farm visits and meet their farmers. And then at the end of the day, they get a return of their sponsorship plus a percentage of the profit that comes from the harvest.
I'm Simon Aderinlola. I'm the country director for Africa is Talking. It's a Kenyan-based company, so it's 8 years old as a Kenyan company, but in Nigeria it's under 2 years old. The firm is essentially focused on developers. And the focus on developers is such that there is an assumption that somewhere in the head of these young men and women going around with their laptops and learning to code, somewhere in their heads lies the idea that will impact the average man on the street and make life better. With that assumption, we then ensure that the APIs and tools we make available for them to develop their products and monetize their product are done in very simple steps. And so at whatever level of a developer proficiency you find yourself, beginner, intermediate, advanced, we will find you useful. And in fact, the partnership we try to also have with various incubator firms is such that we are not competing. The usual incubator arrangement is we look for topmost talent. But we have decided that our approach is different. So top talent is fantastic. But we also tell ourselves that it's not the guys that come out with first class that eventually turn out to be the guys that are running big businesses at the end of the day. So our approach is different in that you either can become a staff of ours when we run you through our process, or we position you to be employed by blue chip firms, or we prepare you to run the business yourself.
Hey, so you hold on to that. We are co-hosting, we're co-hosting this session together. So do you want to start?
Okay, so maybe I could start with a little background. So in my former life, I used to run a value-added services company. And so the first thing we did, so I used to work in Ghana, then I came back to Nigeria, and the first thing we did was get connected to the 4 big telcos. So the usual value-added services you get, informational, entertainment, financial information, and all that, was the business we were running at the time. In 2010, 2011, the CBN released a framework for mobile payments. And looking at what had happened in East Africa, everyone was like, yes, it's going to happen here too. Of course, we know how that story went. But the point I want to bring out is I shifted then from value-added services, mainly telco, into the payment space. And we found that one of the challenges with mobile payments adoption and penetration in Nigeria was the problem of distribution. So the products could be lovely, but if it cannot get to the guys who really need it, we really are not solving any problem. And we noted that most people who were launching services were starting from the convenient mode, which I call you go from the known to the unknown. So if you're launching a service, you like to start in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and tell yourself that the hinterland, we can get there later on. This is where the money is. And if you and I and every other person is launching services that way, we will continue on the same expressway and have the same experiences, and we might not move the needle in any way. So we decided that we needed to start the journey, flip the direction of the journey, and do hinterland towards the developed part of town. And that we needed to do by creating a startup at the time. We identified the need, we looked at what it will cost us. A few guys got themselves committed to doing something. I remember one of the first meetings on this was at a sushi bar in London, where I and a few friends met together and we said, how do we solve this problem? And we need to put money behind it. It's not a case of presenting lovely PowerPoint slide decks to somebody who has money and you think he'll just bring money out. Put something, let tire hit the road. And when people can see what you've done in 6 months, 1 year, then they can start talking seriously with you. I'll still build on this as we continue, but that tells you a little about my background.
Okay, give the mic to Chinedu. So Chinedu, provide some background as to how Max.ng was born, right, and then initial funding.
Okay, that's a very interesting question. How I was born. I feel like a father. Okay, so Max was co-founded by Tayo Bamidoro and myself. We both went to business school at MIT Sloan. We met when we were in school. So we had been I'd come in with Gra, worked in investment banking. I was tired of Yankee. I wanted to move back to Nigeria. And my mother insisted that I must go to graduate school. You cannot come back and be carrying BSc up and down. Nobody will give you work. And I'm like, I don't want work. She's like, I don't care. So we went out to school, got in, started the program. And that particular semester, I think it was my second semester, I was looking around and saying, so who are the folks who are moving back to Nigeria? Everybody's moving back to Nigeria. Until you actually talk about what are you going back to do, and it's like, yeah, we'll figure it out. That sounds like a scam to me. Because my philosophy is that anybody who fails to plan plans to fail. So obviously I started working on some stuff I thought was cool. My mom works in the Ministry of Health. And as a result, I have two younger sisters who are doctors. My father is a doctor, my mother is a doctor. So medicine wants to kill us in the house. So it was one of those things where I had a lot of data around infant mortality, child, maternal mortality at birth and stuff like that. So I wanted to build out a business that targeted the mother and child. I'm for the long tail of the market, so the people who seem to not have that much money. I was trying to build out something then. I was just like, so how do you move stuff from point A to point B? I'm like, who has worked in Konga or Jumia here? And then they pointed me to Tayo. So I was like, how far? We had a chat. I was like too serious. I'm like, all these MBA people, you want to come and kill yourself with book. So we talked, and it turned out he had done work at Konga, part of the team that launched Konga's logistics business. And he was exploring a project in class that would help them improve on Konga's logistics. I'm like, hey, look, I'm trying to figure out a logistics problem, so I can help you guys out. So I go in offering to just be another smart person, quote and unquote, in the room. And then we went there, the business idea seemed interesting, we were talking. A few weeks down the line, I'm like, so I actually know how to write software, I can build an MVP. So I start building out something. And they started thinking about the numbers. I'm like, yeah, I also build financial models. I'm a banking guy, so I can do all this shit for you. So we started building out the financial models, and then the semester ended. And at the end of the semester, I decided that, yeah, I think I'm going to go back to Nigeria and do this, but I need to know that this is actually viable in the market. Because I decided that that's mother and child thing, as interesting as it was, this seemed like a bigger problem to solve. So I took an internship at BGL Securities in Marina, and I came back to work as an intern. Voila. I was living in Badore with my auntie, and there was cow, but I said, see, it's logistics I want to come and do. Let us be entering down for big mistake. I taught 4 suits that period because I'm 6'6". So if I don't get that front seat, now die. I might as well better be the conductor in the bus because it was like a waste of time. So you rush, you drag. After 2 weeks, I told my auntie that this battery is nice, but I need to move closer to work. So I moved to phase 1. Still the same downfall mess, all that stuff. And I was just like, after a while, it was clear that there was a real problem. Because you get to work, you're so tired, right? Work hasn't even started. And then you see people are sleeping. I can understand it. I'm like, yeah, after this struggle I've struggled, I'll be sleeping too. And then you do the work, lunchtime, there's all these challenges to where do you get food? Because I'm looking at the food and, I ate Bama in university, but this one, it looks like it has 3 eyes inside. So we did that, and it was just one of those things where you get all the information and you realize that there's a big problem that needs to be solved, right? So I went back to school and I was like, yeah, I'm doing this full time. And Ty was like, yeah, he's doing this full time too. So we started working on it the last semester of our program. And long story short, we're here. And we graduated June 5th, 2015. And we were back in Nigeria July 21st. And started operations for our pilot August 3rd, 2015. And it was one of those things where we started out in that 2 months, I learned about what accelerators were, hubs, the people that can give you money, people that cannot give you money. We did a financial model and we realized that we needed to raise like $1.5 million. I say, Jesus Christ. I've not seen more than like 2 million naira at once. And somebody talking about $1.5 million. It was kind of weird, right? So I remember we said, okay, so let us ask people for 50,000, see if they will give us. And they were talking, and people were like, really, oh, MIT. Oh, hey, 50,000 makes sense for 40% of your company. I said, die. It's not possible. You might as well come and give me salary. Let us know that that's what we're doing here. So, I mean, luckily we applied to a couple accelerators and got into the Textiles New York program. So we actually got into the Textiles New York program before the application deadline because they were just amazed by what we were doing, which, I mean, I felt like, it's all cool, you know? So we came back, started out the business, and the goal was to get enough data to be able to show to investors that Nigeria is an interesting enough market to invest. This was before Paystack and everybody else went to accelerators. So we did that, came back, rolled out, went back to America, Textiles, started the fundraising, started the accelerator program with the Shopro. I can speak Oyibo accent too. So spoke the English, did everything I needed to be done, showed all the financial models, and then went in thinking, oh my God, nobody will give us $50,000 seriously. To come out and thinking, if I don't collect 1 million from your hand, a waste of my time. You know, it was a complete mental shift, right? And I think that's something a lot of people need. That's something I also appreciate about the American culture because they focus a lot more on you are doing this and therefore you are valuable and can ask for what you need, versus a more Nigerian culture where you live in your father's house till you're 35. You know, I have my classmates from secondary school who are driving Bentley and Mercedes-Benz up and down. They don't have any work to their name, stuff like that. Where in the American this thing, at 18 years, you're not out of your father's house, like something's wrong with you. You know, those kind of different cultures. It's a very different culture, and that was very helpful to us. Obviously, you create networks, and then you go on to raise capital. But there's a lot of critical things that happen along the line that obviously I cannot sit down and talk about in 2 minutes. I'm happy to have more conversations. See, I'm telling you, I'm happy to have conversations outside here. We're also hiring, so that's part of why we're having conversations.
Okay, so quickly, initial funding was from...
So it was predominantly American investors. We had money from angels in New York.
Okay.
Lazaro Ventures gave us money. Textiles Ventures gave us money. Right Out Capital gave us money. We raised $1 million our seed round. Okay. And between then and now, we've raised another $300,000 in grants. And we're doing a Series A right now, for which you will hear an announcement soon.
Okay. We'd like the exclusive on that. Okay, cool. Initial funding. What was the problem that you noticed and how did you start?
So yes, what was the problem that I noticed? And by the way, my co-founder, Topwe Awashika, is also in the audience because I think MedZaf is a great example of people realizing that there's a massive issue to solve, looking around and seeing that nobody's doing anything about it, and everyone just kind of coming together and joining a cause and joining a company to actually achieve something. So didn't even know Topwe before MedZaf. We met because we both cared about people having access to quality medication. So my background, so opposite of some of the others on this panel, born and raised in the United States. I had never been to Nigeria or sub-Saharan Africa before 2013. So that was, and I've been here ever since. I've actually lived full-time in Nigeria since then. My background in the U.S. was home health care agencies, so I was working in healthcare. So I had, great understanding of how the U.S. healthcare system worked, and all of my family is in healthcare. So, also come from a healthcare family, and wanted to go to business school, just kind of take a break, and then go back to business, and got a chance to travel around the world and go to business school in Brazil, and just fell in love with emerging markets and said, okay, these are types of markets that you can make a really big impact. And everyone there kept saying, I'm Nigerian, and they're eating Yoruba food, and I'm like, wow, I've never been to Nigeria. And that's how I ended up showing up to Lagos 5 years ago. I just thought I'd come here, I'd do an internship for a couple of months, see what it's like, and then go back to Nigeria. So a lot of great experiences, but the biggest thing that happened that really stuck with me was that one of my friends during that time died from taking a fake malaria pill. And it just, it was an immense feeling of shame and guilt and sadness that I couldn't imagine a life where I go to the hospital or pharmacy and put something in my mouth and can potentially die from it. But after that, it just opened my mind to the fact that there's this issue. And I kept then talking to people about it. I'd say, well, where do you get your medication? And I realized that a lot of people were bringing medication in their suitcases, and that it was typical that they would have friends or families bring medication in their suitcases from Europe or the United States for family and friends. And I mean, that's really weird. So you've got lines of Nigerian drug dealers with suitcases, and they're like moms and grandmas, and what does that mean? So that, just kind of trying to analyze, does that make sense to have to go to another continent to get medication for yourself? That doesn't make sense. And then I had my own challenges. I remember I had what ended up being vertigo, but I hopped from hospital to hospital because they kept saying I had malaria. And I remember my eyes are just going in the back of my head. And at one point they just came and put me on the hospital bed and just prayed over me. And I was just like, where is the medicine for vertigo? And it really took, I promise you, it took me 5 hospitals to get a doctor to take my temperature and look in my ear and say, you have an ear infection. So, it was a lot of, experiences like that, and then meeting people like Topwe who also had their own series of stories about just understanding how the healthcare industry differed from other places that they had worked in. And at that point, it was just like, well, let's just do something about it. So I think, so that was one thing. We had our developer, CTO in Portugal, never been to Africa before, but he thought also that people should deserve to have safe medication. And it was literally a team of people who just really, really, really felt that what we're doing is big enough for them to invest their time and their effort. And so that if you're trying to start a business, I think trying to don't be afraid of building something just bigger than anyone can imagine, because it's worth it. And so that was my big learning from that. But as far as funding, how did we get funding? I watched a lot of startups. So actually, I think it was 2-3 years ago, I came to my first startup, Lagos, to find out what's going on in the ecosystem, and to learn how I could plug in and be a part of building something bigger than myself. And I just would listen to case studies, listen to people's experiences, try to learn from them. So when I started the company, we had a really set idea of how we were going to raise money. So understanding, term sheets and, talking to people and just vetting it. And I just had so many different people who had raised money before. So I made sure to just surround myself with people like one of our first investors, Bastian Goddard. I mean, I think they raised $20 million plus for Roku TV. Just making sure that I could have access to people like that who could then give me feedback on exactly how I needed to raise money. But that being said, I did go to Nigerians first and said, this is a company that you should be, of course you're gonna just invest in this, right? But the honest truth is that our first investors were my friends, my ex-employee or my ex-boss, and an American in Silicon Valley that had just come to Nigeria once and decided to take a chance on MedZaf. So we really did make money from, or we did raise our money from half Americans and then Nigerians, or mostly expats who had worked or built businesses in Nigeria. So that was a bit of a sad thing, but it is what it is.
Okay, Thank you very much. I'm Oinka. So, what's the problem you identified? How did you first raise money?
Okay. So a bit about my background. I've had some time working with a couple of organizations that are household names today. So first, before the startup world, I worked with the likes of British Council as a web manager for 2 years, and then joined Deloitte and was web manager for a couple of their websites across 6 countries. And then the first startup I worked with was Wakanao. And this was in 2010 when they just raised 7.5 million from Tiger Global. And I joined them to create their web presence. So their website, the mobile app, I was in charge of all of that for another 2 years. And then I decided that I wanted to take a new step out of online marketing because I had a background in software engineering. And I wanted to take a step off that to now focus on PR marketing, to focus on traditional marketing. So I was looking for opportunities around there. And then I got in touch with the guys at Rocket Internet and was telling them, I think you guys should look at, this was in April 2012, I think you guys should look at Nigeria as a potential market. You should come to leave South Africa where I don't think the business is as big as what you have here in Nigeria. And they said to me, oh, we are here, let's meet tomorrow. I sent them a message on LinkedIn and like, oh, let's meet tomorrow. I'm like, oh, okay. And I went there for a meeting in 4 Points, and then after a couple of conversations, I joined them as the first Nigerian employee, as director of marketing, just pretty much helping to set up Rocket Internet's presence in Nigeria. And then we then came up with 2 platforms, Sabunta and Kasua, which later merged to become Jumia. So stayed with them for that bit. I was watching them raise money. So I was seeing the things they were doing, because I didn't have that experience. As much as I was in the management team in Wakanao, there were a lot of things happening that I didn't know what was going on. But in Jumia, I had first-hand knowledge. I was seeing 23-year-olds convincing people to put $3 million, $4 million, $5 million in a business that's not up to a year. It was driving me nuts. And I was just watching and learning different things around how they position themselves, how they talk to the investors, the mentality of faster, 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 their mode of operation, which was different from what other businesses had. So businesses set up, they don't know their exit. These guys know their exit before they even start. And so everything was, so I was watching all of that, and then later on decided to leave, did a stint with GTB to launch SME Market Hub, then joined Konga.com as Vice President of Marketing. And that was maybe the last major place that I said I was going to work, but I still eventually did that later. I joined Konga.com, set up the marketing team, worked with them for about a year, and then decided I wanted to do my own first startup. My first startup was called Quick Gist. Quick Gist. It was a news aggregator that, so one day I woke up and my wife used to wake up and she would open Linda IKG, Bella Niger, and all of those things, and she was just opening them consistently and different tabs. So it just gave me an idea. What if you had an app that will allow all the places where you want to source your news from, you just gather everything to one place. And rather than opening several tabs, you're just flipping, you're scrolling from different sources. And pretty much like Google News today. So that had 200,000 downloads in 4 weeks. My co-founder then was Balumi of Kudi.ai. He's the co-founder of Kudi.ai now. So we built that in 3 days and launched it, and 200,000 downloads in 3 to 4 weeks. I started looking for investors. I felt I knew how to get investors. So I started designing pitch decks I knew how to design. I was pitching the wrong way. But then I was very tenacious. So I would go for events like this, and I see investors talking, and I just want them to know my startup. I'll stand up, I'll raise my hand, I have a question. I'm not saying we should do that today. I'll raise my hand, I have a question. Before I will say my question, I'll pitch, and then I will ask my question. It didn't work. So because of my experience in Konga, I then found an opportunity where I was speaking at the Mobile Web West Africa event. So I went with a colleague. I told him to stay in the crowd and ask me a question about my startup, saying, that startup you had, how did you get 200,000 downloads in 3 weeks? And he did that, and I got my first investor there. The investor came to meet me when we were taking coffee and said, that your startup that you got 200,000 downloads in 3 weeks. How did you do it? And I raised $50,000 with 3 meetings after that. And so I thought that, okay, it's time to now go out and do big things. We'll conquer the world. And then by the 6th month, I had used my house rent, my savings, to pump it into a startup that I raised $50,000 for. And it was already pointing to me that it was failing. There's so many things that I learned on that journey. But I didn't want to stop until I couldn't afford to buy diapers for my son. And that's when I realized I had to shut this down quickly and get a job. It got so bad that my in-laws would ask me questions. Well, ask my wife, why did you marry this guy? He was earning 800,000 to $1 million, and then he resigned. He can't buy diapers. So when it got so bad, so I then fell back to my old skill set of designing websites. I've designed over 400 websites in my time. For different organizations. I've designed websites for the wrong reasons too. I see a pretty lady I want to talk to. I can't approach her. I'll design a website in her name and send her the URL. And she gets the URL, and it always worked. For the guys out there, it's just a little clue. So I designed so many websites, and so I started looking for opportunities to design websites for people. So I ended up designing the current Guardian newspaper website, the current Business Day newspaper website. And that was where I was now able to push my team into. And then later on, Business Day acquired QuickGist. And my teams went into those companies. And today, the current team handling the online presence for Guardian and Business Day, a crop of people, 12 of them came out of, so the 6 came out of QuickGist. So that was how I then survived that very low point in my life. Then that investor said to me, he had another opportunity. Somebody approached him that wanted to launch a travel site, whether I was interested or whether I should join him. I asked him how much he was going to pay me. He told me. I asked him how much those people were going to pay me. He told me. Those guys were going to pay me close to $2 million. He was going to pay me about 300,000. I told him, let me first work with them. And once I'm done getting money, I'll come back and help him build his idea. So I picked that other offer. And that was how I helped the owners of Travel Better launch Travel Better. I did that for 2 years. We worked with about $2 million. The lessons I learned with QuickGist helped me to make sure Travel Better then was at a stage where they had 6 officers, they were doing well. And that was when Buhari's administration, this current administration, came in and said people should invest in agriculture. This was 2015. I got excited about what I was going to do with agriculture. And I started looking for a farmer to work with. But I kept on hearing sad stories. So it's either I hear people say they put 20 million naira in a catfish farm, and then water comes and sweeps everything, and they lost their money. I didn't even have 500,000 naira to put, not to talk of 20 million. That's like an investment in a startup that they will tell me water will come and move it away. There were so many stories. Or that the farmer even does the work and he doesn't know where to sell, and the harvest is wasted. So those were the issues I was hearing a lot of people say. When I started doing my research on the farmers to work with, I then found that farmers had their own problems. Access to capital, so they're considered unbankable, couldn't access funds. 2 was technical know-how. So a farmer has maybe a pen that can do 10,000 beds, but he's only doing 1,000 beds every season because he doesn't have the expertise to expand on that. He doesn't have money to expand on that. And then even if he does all those 2 things, at harvest, he doesn't know where to sell. So I then discovered that was a huge gap. And very quickly, instead of going in at this alone, I assembled a team of people around me, finance, tech, core agri operations, and then data. And then we then came together and built the platform called Farm Crowdy. It's just pretty much a crowd of, when I was looking for a name, I just looked for a crowd of people coming together to farm. So I initially called it crowd farming. it didn't sound too. I wanted something like you use Google and search for, you find anything. And so I flipped it around and called it Farm Crowdy, and that made more sense. And that was how we launched Farm Crowdy. The first year, and we started identifying farmers to work with. And then the first farmer was a female poultry farmer, 550-day-old chicks. We told her to raise them, and we're going to sell them. She started in September. We're going to sell them by Christmas of that year. She raised them. She stayed in the pens. She would sleep there just to make sure they had the warmth. She make sure that snakes and all those things don't come into the pen. And she raised them, and she gave us back 500, and out of 550, she lost maybe only 20. We took those birds and brought them to Lagos. As we were bringing them to Lagos, most of the birds were doing 3.5 kg, 4 kg. We didn't know that was wrong. That's what you sell when you're selling one-to-one. Everybody will carry the bird and weigh it like this. But when you're doing retail, they just want 1.8. So we didn't even know all this. So and then we moved the birds, and on the way the truck broke down, we lost 300 of the birds. We couldn't even tell her to break her heart. I mean, someone that spent 4 months making sure we got that. So all these challenges then allowed us learn how to fine-tune our model. And I mean, today we've done close to 600,000 birds. Our mortality rate is still below 4%. We've done 8,000 acres of rice and maize. We have 5,000 acres of rice, of maize, and 2,000 acres of rice. It's grown from where we were, where we started, to where we are today. It's been an exciting journey. Now, speaking about funding, I took a lot of the cue from what I learned in all of those places and tried to make sure we set out to do what we wanted to do in Farm Crowdy. But I started with my own money. So I started saving. As soon as I knew I was going to leave Travel Better, by February of that year, I started keeping half of my salary aside until September when we went live. So I used my money to pay for the initial place. We got a place that somebody called a garage. But I didn't care. You didn't have to know our address, just sponsor farms. That was all I was after. So we got a place. I was with the initial people were paying with that money. And when people started sponsoring farms, I started having data, first month, second month, third month, that I could now use to present on my pitch deck. And I started showcasing that. So we then raised $60,000 4 months into Farm Crowd. People want to get to YC. I think the deadline is October 2nd. People know the dates. Everybody wants to get into all of these accelerators. But I got into Techstars, and I saw so many startups. And I found out that if I remember I went with Ifeanyi, one of my co-founders. I say, if we enter Nigeria and we don't raise money here, we have failed. Because there's no way I can be in a place like this where people are excited about investing opportunities and we don't raise money. That pushed us within our accelerator program to pitch to over 90 investors. 90. So some people pitch to 10 and they get 10 no's and they are done. And they want to tweak their model. We pitched to 90. We got 75 no's. But we got 15 years. And in those 15 years, we got investors that eventually invested in us where we're excited about doing deals with them. And that's how we raised our first $1 million. And later on, we got a grant from the GSMA. And now we're also raising some more funds. And I mean, we're raising funds because people want to invest in Farm Crowdy, not because we truly need that money, but we also see the opportunity to scale now that we fine-tune our model to the point where end-to-end we've minimized our risk to the barest minimum. So we want to take advantage of that and expand our model. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I had another line of questions, but time is gone. So I'm going to open the floor up for questions from the audience. Anybody has questions? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so...
My name is Oluwatosin. I run Money Africa. Guys, you're doing a great, fantastic job. I'm so proud of everyone. I'm going to direct this one to Vivian. Vivian, I see that you don't have a tech background. How did you feel comfortable choosing that tech co-founder? I'm also going to send another one to you. Oyeka. Fantastic job. So the first $1 million you raised, after how many months or years had Farm Crowdy been operating? And then number two, how did you sort out the issue with regulation? I mean, it's a fintech company. How did you get regulation about raising funds to then invest in farms?
So I'll definitely answer that question. I think it's a good one. I mean, we're in Africa, so there's, I mean, well, anyway, I won't say that because you guys have a great platform over there with lots of developers and access to developers. But the reality is that we spent a lot of the beginning of our company actually spending time in our customers' offices, their hospitals, and watching exactly how they purchase medications, how they manage their medications, gathering data. We started off the company with running surveys. Really, tech doesn't need to, you don't need to start your tech journey with a massive, flashy product, right? So what we did was we put up a website, a simple e-commerce website, and we started the company knowing that we wanted to build something as easy to use as Instagram, as easy to use as Facebook and Amazon, because when we went to hospitals, even as far as Ogun State, we saw that someone in the building, the decision makers, the doctors, or the pharmacists had access to a smartphone, and many times I would go into someone's clinic and I would see Facebook up, or I would see even Jumia and Konga up. So we knew that we could build something that was very easy for them to use. So tech platform, over 400 pharmacies and hospitals signed up to use that platform by just putting up something very simple. So that was one. And then for the more complicated pieces of our business, it was more understanding exactly the pain points that manufacturers have when they're distributing medications and trying to understand where their medications end up in the market. It was watching hospitals and pharmacies and then using Excel to build simple ways to share information, and then that is the basis of technology, that solution we've built around it. So I think first of all, just understanding at a very granular level exactly what the process is from the very beginning to the end, and then creating great partnerships with organizations or other companies that can help you build what you need to build. So for example, our tracking and tracing technology from manufacturers that's rolling out, that's a partnership. We didn't have to spend the millions of dollars that they did on building that platform. It's already built, and they're partnering with MedZaf. We're in Google Launchpad right now, partnering with large tech companies. And then, of course, being able to understand your vision extremely well so that you can inspire a great developer with 10 years of experience to invest in building. So, for example, our platform that we launched with, we never spent a penny on it. Joao didn't receive anything for that platform when he built it. He built it because he believed in MedZaf. So that's how you build a company in anywhere without a tech background.
Okay, the $1 million we raised in investment, how we were 11 months old when we raised 1 million, we celebrated our first year anniversary. We had already raised that money. Today, Farm Crowdy is 21 months old, so we'll be 2 in November. Speaking to the second question, now this is, by the way, when I say investment, that's people investing in Farm Crowdy for equity. In terms of sponsorship, we've done close to $6 million with Nigerians already till date in that 21 months. But when we started, it took us 6 weeks to get $5,000. Now, speaking to the second question about regulation, just when Mr. Bayo spoke about the fact that you got to be tenacious, and he mentioned clearly that there are times you get no's, but the people that are bold enough to take steps are those that will eventually become pioneers of different industries that we see today. With us at Farm Crowdy, when I wanted to start this, there was no template to follow anywhere in the world at that time. I mean, the closest I could look at was Kiva in the US. That would fit exactly what I wanted to do. So we then created a model, and then first wrong move, I went straight to SEC. I said, okay, do you have anything related to this that we can go under? And they told us, we don't understand what you're doing, so just go and come back. And then 2 days later, they issued a statement and said, this was before we launched, this was 2 months before we even went live. Anyone doing anything related to crowdfunding, we don't understand it, you do so at your own risk. I saw that in the papers, I was mad, livid, mad. I was really angry about it. And so we then went back and took out what looked so visibly like a crowdfunding model and changed it to more e-commerce style, where you can actually have one person with one farmer work on a project. And that was what we took. And then our first early investors, Rashid Olaoluwa, the former MD of Bank of Industry, and he explained to us what UBA went through with something similar when they started doing some FX things around 94 when he was there as a director. And he said, just build it and make sure you do things properly and you are in tune with what is going on with them so that you can be in the conversations when they are ready for you. Going to 2 years down the line, now they're interested, and now we're having conversations. And now we are also in the forefront of looking at setting the tone for other platforms that will come, and also managing who even comes in, where we're raising the barrier for entry, because we're involved in the conversations today. So, but if I waited for them, it would have taken me 2 years to get to this point.
All right, thank you. You want to add something? Okay.
I wanted to add something on how you manage the regulator.
Okay.
Sometimes startups get so scared about the regulator that they decide to detour instead of actually confronting them. So when we were starting, there was no agent network. The Beyond Branches business we sold to InterSwitch, there was no agent network policy yet. There was no license created. But the beautiful thing about
the network that Paga uses now, the agent network, is that what you're talking
the
about?
one that InterSwitch. So InterSwitch has InterSwitch Inclusion. So that was the entity that we started that eventually merged with InterSwitch. But I'm using that as an example. When you approach a regulator that does not understand what you want to do the hard work of breaking it down for them. Don't get annoyed. Don't leave the table. If they still don't understand, remind them that as regulators, there's a power they have. They can give you an approval that says, go ahead and start this thing, and then we will bring regulation later. And so like he said, stay in the conversation, because eventually when that conversation comes up on the agenda, you will be a major person that will shape policy and thus create the expressway for your own business.
Okay, thank you. Who's number 2? Okay. Quickly, please.
Good evening. My name is Ifai. I run a business sustainability platform. I think my first question will go to you. I want to know how, okay, we are at a level where we are doing very well in what we do, helping small businesses become viable. But we are at this level where I want to understand, must you get a co-founder? Because it seems all startups are saying co-founder, and I'm looking at if, based on what we are doing, the result we are getting, we are doing okay, must you get a co-founder? Secondly, in terms of as you are growing, at what level do you start to give out equity, and how do you measure the amount of equity you give out?
Must you get a co-founder? You must not. You are not under obligation to. If you are the guy who crafted your idea, identified the problem, and decided to start the necessary foundation for a business that solves that problem, you are the founder. Now, it depends on how you want to call a person co-founder, because it's a nice to have name, right? So it is now left to you, if you are the originator of the idea, how you want to define the people who either come in the early stages, or they're bringing money, or they're bringing sweat. How you want to define that, we'll leave that to you. However, note something that Bayo said earlier. Don't go alone if there are other good heads around that can help enrich what you want to launch. Otherwise, you will shoot yourself in the leg by just being selfish.
Then
I think we answered that one then.
He said something about equity. When do you know when to give out equity?
Okay. Now, it also depends on, maybe that could speak sometimes to the greed in us. It's somewhere sitting far inside. Do you want to go alone, or do you want to go far? It's an important question. You want to go alone, you could decide that you overvalue what you have. Until you take what you think is diamond to the market, it just might be glass that shines very well. So you actually need to take it out there and let people who are professionals actually indicate to you what this really is. And you need to let tire hit the road. And when you are clear about the valuation, you then can estimate what anybody is bringing in. He indicated earlier he could laugh at what some people were bringing in because they had gone beyond writing code, building a platform. They had gone to the point of testing it. They had an idea of how people were responding. So anybody bringing X amount could be laughed at because they had an idea of what value they were bringing. If you don't yet have that scope, you either could undersell yourself, or you could be in the case of what Oyeka described earlier, selling chickens without understanding the kg and the retail principles. So there is no hard and fast rule as regards what amount you give out, but it's important that you continue to learn from people who have preceded you. No need to make mistakes others have made. Learn as much as possible and step on the back of champions.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Sorry, I have a question about the equity. Are you talking about employee equity or co-founders?
Our platform is called Counselor. So what we do is we.
Okay, don't pitch me.
Okay,
I think
sorry.
about employee equity.
No, what is
co-founders.
actually both ways. Like I said, we are currently doing very well, but we're at a stage where we need to scale. And now, so what I'm saying, if I need to bring in outside investors, or even there are certain people that we are trying to bring in into on board, we are saying, what do we offer them so that it doesn't look like 5 years down the line you give out so much for so little.
So investors. So when you're talking about investor equity, you typically, there's a few things that people don't do well before they go out to fundraise. You want to find someone who's going to lead your investment, right? A lot of times you meet people who say, my company is valued at $10 million. I say, according to who? What's the valuation based off of, right? Whatever valuation you have, you must justify that. So we're in the middle of fundraising. Investors ask me, what's your valuation? I say, we don't have a valuation, no. It's a conversation. Why? Because if it's too high, you will run, Abi. If it's too low, you undervalue me, you will be too aggressive, Abi. So why not I just let us be looking at each other and be smiling and toasting and toasting and toasting and toasting until we agree on something? It's a negotiation, right? There's something called FOMO, the fear of missing out. You need to create that in your fundraising. So that means you start fundraising. So I'll give you context. Let me now shine small. We started fundraising at 4 months, closed around at 7 months, raised $1 million, right? But but it's conversation. The first time I meet you, I'm talking about fundraising. I'm telling you, we're doing 10 trips a day, 20 trips a day. We have 3 drivers on our platform. A month down the line, we have 20 drivers on the platform. We're doing 100 trips a day. Your long throat will catch. These guys, you're making progress. By the 3rd month, I'm telling you, I'm doing 500 trips a day. Your fear is, if I give this guy 1 more month, he will be making too much money for me to give him money. Right? At that point, he's willing to give me a very positive valuation. Whenever they ask me valuation, I'm still not giving you a valuation because why? I cannot come and kill myself. Right? But that means you're sure that you're doing well, meaning that you're measuring everything and working towards an actual goal. So it's a conversation. Then for employees, it's a question of value. If I want someone to work with me long term, right, I'm going to give you equity that tells you to stay long term. So I'm going to give you, even if it's 0.1% I'm giving you, it's going to be spread out over 5 years. So you do the 1 year cliff and then the four year payout. What the 1 year cliff is you don't get any equity for the first year. We've agreed what your equity is, but it doesn't actually vest. It's called a vesting schedule. It doesn't actually vest for the first year. At the end of the first year, 20% of whatever you're getting, or if you do a 4-year vesting schedule, 25% of whatever you're getting automatically vests. Meaning, if you leave the company, now you're on to carry go. Do you understand? Now, after that first year, it now vests on a month-by-month basis. That way, you are here for that 4 years or that 5 years, and if you go, I collect the rest. And that one you have collected, you are paying for options. So there'll be a strike price on the option, whatever it is. It's usually a token price. You pay it, your equity vest, you carry, you go. But you want to check out this book called Venture Deals. It'll teach you a lot about fundraising, terminologies, valuation, those kind of things. Most people will not read it. You need to read it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Igatiba is my name. I run a social enterprise that is poised to redefine and reshape the quality of water for domestic and industrial uses in Africa. I want to say it's a privilege to be here.
What's the question?
Yeah, my question is very simple. The reason why so many businesses in Africa don't actually transform to generational businesses is actually one of the problems this event is actually solving. That is bridging the gap in the ecosystem. So I want to ask if you are available for mentoring, because there are a lot of people that are doing very great things. You understand, they don't know how to package it, they don't know how to put it together. Unlike my sister that came from, it's a different climb here. Thank you. Let me just keep it that simple.
The CC Hub.
Yes, and like I said, when I came to Nigeria, I didn't really know much. So I spent a lot of time asking questions and just saying, how does that work? Really? Why? How? Tell me more. And like to the point where people are like, this is just a learner, this is someone who's just constantly learning. So I definitely have to give back to all the people who spent time to completely just answer my questions, stupid questions, great questions, over and over and over again. So I would definitely say I'm open for mentorship, and I think that the only way that you can build a company, whether it's in Nigeria or anywhere else in the world, is by just finding people who can give you feedback, that you can vet your ideas over and over again. And when I tell you that I went to people over and over again, I literally went to them every single week. And also some of our great investors, they said, absolutely not, your business sucks, it's a horrible idea, from the very beginning. And I had to keep going back to them and saying, well, this is what we have today. This is how I've addressed this issue. This is how I've addressed this issue, until they were like, okay, great, here's the check. So I think, yes, absolutely mentorship, and everyone should think about that as the way to actually build their business.
Let me just add to that everyone is looking for mentors, and we're all mentees to other people, right? What I've seen in my time is the best mentors I've had are those that I created value for them. My own mentors, the best ones I've had, I created value for them. I wasn't looking to get a loan. I also had something to give them. So maybe their wife has a bakery. I create a website for their wife. I've solved one problem in their bedroom. And the guy is happy with me. All my mentors, before they become mentors, I would have had lunch, dinner, because I've built a relationship before I say, be my mentor. So it's important that people see this, because today I go to a couple of places, people say, oh, come and be my mentor. I usually put them to a test and ask them to do a couple of things, and only those that do it are the ones that I'm interested in. And it may not happen the first time. She talked about persistence. It may not happen the first time, but I have to see that there's some value at the end of the day I get from you that makes it exciting for me to share my own knowledge with you. So I think this is important for everyone, because next thing everyone says is, you'll be my mentor. I get emails, I want you to mentor me, Facebook. So because I have an open door policy, even online, people send me tweets, send me stuff on Facebook, send me stuff on LinkedIn, especially when you've raised money.
Yeah, there was someone that just a thought. There was someone that sent me a message. They found out that we raised money, and they were like, I'm in college right now, and I can you please give me some money because I saw that you raised money online, and I'd like to really complete my school studies. And I was just like, I worked in high school and I worked in college and I worked till 10 o'clock at night. And I so definitely just don't have an entitlement attitude, which I think is what you're saying. Like you have to work really hard to be able to get something back, especially time or value from other people. And you should think about that. Not anyone in particular, but just in general.
Okay, I mean, I'll just add something to that, since we're all being honest. Mentorship makes a lot of sense. I think it's great. What I've found is that a lot of people come, oh, I need help with this, or I want advice on that, etc., etc. You give the help, you give the advice. They don't use it for anything, and then they come back with more questions and more help. And after a while, I'm like, get out of my office. You are actually mad. And we find that a lot of people do that a lot. They feel like, oh, because they're not paying you for the service, they want to come and hang out, want to come and gist and gist and gist and gist. I think it's also important that whenever you do those kind of mentorship relationships, you need to be respectful of the fact that whoever you're spending time with has so many other things that they could be doing, and they've chosen to spend that time with you. So when they do provide value, take it, do something with it, and show that you've appreciated for it, because you're not paying them, right? So it's one of those things where you have to do that. There's also a lot of work that people also can do outside just going directly to mentors. There's spaces where you meet people who can potentially mentor you, right? So I see CC Hub is doing a fantastic job making spaces available for people to like work, learn, etc. Workstation is doing something very similar. Lead Space is doing something very similar. Lead Space in particular is doing a lot of good work. So, and these networks too. Okay, so there's, as part of fundraising, you ask people to do introductions for you. And the investors, that when they do introduction for you, you're like, you might as well become my daddy or my mommy, right? Because of how the kind of nice things they have to say. Organizations like LeadSpace, CC Hub, BTC do that same thing, right? Where they create that trust, or they put that stamp of, this guy is someone who is serious that you should you should actually pay attention to. Because if you think about it, I mean, look at her now. Someone is asking her for school fees. That's kind of ridiculous, right? But there are a lot of people who are also sliding into her LinkedIn for love or for whatever the case may be. And if you're sending messages to those kind of platforms too, she might not just have the time to take a look and say, this is someone I should talk to. So going through places like CC Hub, LeadSpace, Workstation is also a place to actually meet people and actually build those mentorship networks.
Thank you. Yeah. Basically, my question is, when pitching your my name is Godson. Yeah. When pitching your business to an investor, what are things you must never, things you must hammering while presenting your business? I'm directing my question to Mr. Oyeka. And the other, and you too, sir. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So, going from, permit me to flip your question. What you should say, what you should not say. It sounds like I need to reel out like 7 points and 7 pros and cons. Let's just make some facts clear. Whoever wants to invest in your business wants to see the clarity, understanding, and doggedness in your eyes. Forget about all the nice ways you've spoken, the good documents that somebody helped you knock together. That's why they usually want to meet you. It should radiate, it should come off you. And if you have that conviction, believe me, even if your English is not good, it will transcend your English problem. If you have not the requisite experience, it will still transcend it, because investors are ready to take a risk in a guy who has taken a risk already. So I'll give you a quick example. I work now for Africa's Talking. And this company, by year 1 of its existence, had gotten profitable. It only got money this year, very recently, like the 8th year of his existence. So why will it need money if it's gotten profitable earlier? It calls itself Africa is Talking. It has a desire to cover the whole of Africa, and it's doing it slowly with its own profit. It is then clear when you're talking to an investor what his money is coming to do because you already have a direction. They need to see where you are headed. So what you say, what you don't say, you could read up certain books, they'll help you a bit with it. But first of all, be very, very legit with what you're doing, and don't be deflated when you hear a no. It might be a rubbish idea you presented, but don't get crestfallen the first time they tell you it is rubbish. When you keep hearing it's rubbish and you keep checking, when the truth comes to you, please adjust and fine-tune. But if you still continue to check and you are sure what you have has not yet gotten to the right investor who will understand and take the right interest, please continue that journey.
Do you need more? Because okay, let me come from the angle. So, from what I've seen, I mean, in addition to what Mr. Seaman has said, from what I've seen across different startups, there are a couple of things that investors like to see. In addition to a passionate entrepreneur, there are other things they also like to see. Remember, investors are human beings, and relationships always count. That's why most times investors you do cold emails to don't really respond. But those that an introduction is made to first tend to at least look at the pitch deck before they will say yes or no, whether they contact you or not, because of the introduction, because of the connection. So just put that somewhere. Some of the key things I have seen over time is they like to see a team. A team that has history before the idea, a team that has common passion on what they are driving today, and a team that has the competency to actually execute on the idea. So I've mentioned team 3 times. The other thing they like to look for is the market size. How big is your idea going to really change the world? Is it going to have an effect on only people in this room? Or is it going to have an effect on people in Lagos? Or are you going to be able to scale this model to other parts of Africa and have impact in other lives? Your market size based on your idea. The other thing they like to look at is the actual idea, the actual model. How is it crafted? And how are you able to take care of the risk associated with it? Beyond all of this is they want to see traction. And this is why it is important for entrepreneurs from day one to document your progress. Your first month versus your second month versus your third month. And they're able to see you go from 10 bikes to 100 bikes to 1,000 bikes. You know, they like to see traction and see progress, that you're actually making progress. Now, I'll tell you something we also did. So apart from all of these things, I'll tell you something we also did. Because I understood the effect of relationships, to all our investors, whether current investors or potential investors we're having conversations with, I send regular stakeholder updates where I tell them across the team what is happening per time, as much as I can divulge out there without being scared that competition will take advantage of it, assuming it gets into their hands. I send these regular stakeholder updates where a potential investor that I want to be on my deal in the 9th month starts getting my update from the 1st month, just telling him what we've done in terms of progress. Pictures, text, sometimes videos to YouTube, just showing the progress across the company, financial progress, operational progress, marketing progress, people progress, technology progress. And while sending these updates, so if I see an investor asking, when are you doing fundraising? I can say in the update, We actually had somebody ask us about fundraising. We're not interested now, but these are conversations we may want to have in the 5th month. I've actually told everybody that got that update that in the 5th month from that time, we'll be fundraising. And then by the 4th month, we actually had two requests now. We're looking forward to the 5th month. And by the 4th, so this is, I'm counting down, so 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd. The 2nd month, say 60 days to raising. Like, you know what? We have so much interest. We're opening the round on so day. Our first funding round, we wanted to do $500,000. We got $300,000 in 3 days. Commitments. Because they had consistently gotten updates from time. The relationship wasn't built on, I need your check. The relationship had been built over time from, you getting my updates, we're talking, and you're able to connect with what it is we're doing. And so by the time I say we're raising money, they already understand what we're using the money for. So these are things we should take as feedback, and we can use to prepare ourselves, while also having the passion. So now, I'll end with this. We had a company come in on Sunday. They actually forced me, not this Sunday, the previous Sunday, that they wanted to have a conversation. I had looked at the fact that they had a competitor we're talking with. These are big corporates. These are businesses that are worth over $500 billion and above. And we had a conversation with one. I know they're interested in a deal. So I had another conversation with another. This is another thing I found with investors. Competition drives interest. I had another conversation with another. I was bullish. The kind of thing you're saying. I wasn't. This one, I said I would bamboozle this guy. And then at the end of the day, I tell him, you know what? This guy is actually looking at us. And the guy was like, are you serious? Japanese. Are you serious? And it was like, can I get a deck today? Can I get a deck today? And those conversations went faster than the other guy. Competition drives the taste. If any deal you see close quickly, most times competition drives it. It means there's something, and sometimes there's some investors, they won't even look at, they just want to hear, this person is in the deal. Let's rope in. If he's in the deal, we're all roping in. If they hear, this person is out of the deal, they won't even ask questions, we're all out. So those are things you're going to take into consideration. Finally, pitch to the right investors. You can't be an impact-driven business and you're talking to a fintech man that wants just profit. Or you're all for money making and you're telling the person that is looking for impact how to invest in. So those were lessons I learned with my 90 pitches. You pretty much focus on your sector. Look for people that are doing something similar. Find out who invested in them. Use Crunchbase. Use as many tools as you can use out there. Watch the stories that are coming out on TechCrunch and see who is investing right now. It tells you maybe they have a fund that they are executing on, and that's someone you may want to put your pitch to, especially if they are focused on African startups. There's some investors, they want to invest in your sector, but they are focused on the US market, or they are focused on the European market. If you're pitching to them from now to tomorrow, if they are honest enough, they'll tell you, okay, maybe you should talk to somebody else. Or they'll just give you a quiet no without answering you. So,
I just want to add one thing to that. When I started raising, I was so passionate about the idea and explaining exactly what we were doing that I forgot to ask for money. So there were a couple of times in my first pitches and the first money that we raised, they were like, okay, so are you ready to, are you getting money? I'm like, oh yeah, that's true, yes. So now we had investors come in our office today and I said, I want $100,000 right now for these facilities. And I'm very, very clear of exactly what I want and I'm not afraid to ask, give me money and this is what I'm gonna use it for. So that's just different.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jude Atebe, and I run VoucherNet Limited. Firstly, I want to say congratulations to you all. I see some of you are even serial entrepreneurs 2-3 times over, having turned around your businesses. But I want to draw from the keynote speaker who asked, asked us to be quite realistic in our expectations. From the stories you guys have told us about having, had successful fundraising, be like say, "Una don't blow," and I wouldn't like that, some of us leave here thinking, "Shit, if I just raise, I don't blow." There are commitments to what, you guys have gotten from your investors, I imagine. Would you be kind to, elaborate as best as you can and quickly? I think people are, time is out. What kind of commitments do you have with your investors? And is profit really, being pushed at as something that you guys have to get out now? And are you really churning out profits already? Or, the money is still being, and what time, I guess before anybody puts money with you, they are already saying when you are saying, hey, the bottom line is going to be positive and they can start recouping their money. Thank you.
I can answer this question. So Topway knows when we first started raising money, it was extremely painful because healthcare was not what everyone was interested in at the time. It was fintech and logistics and e-commerce and stuff like that. So people were seeing that those businesses, that's where they wanted to put the money in. And we did find ourselves in some situations where we were getting terms that we, just thought were not indicative of the value of the company that we were trying to build. So there were times, especially in the beginning, we bootstrapped up until a certain point, and then we started to accept money where we turned away, lump sums of money that would have been and looked like they were extremely helpful to us, but it was that knowledge up front about what the terms actually mean, and what that will do to the founder's equity, and what does that do to equity, and what is our value, and just being really strong in that we deserve something better, that allowed us to say no to money, and we turned that away. And then now that we have VC, so we have like an angels, friends, and family round, but we do have also a VC in there, a venture capital investor in there, and I think that everybody, and we're probably the biggest pressure, the biggest pressures on our own shoulders about the fact that we want to, accelerate our growth, and revenue is the most important thing to us. We are also very clear that we need to build a strong foundation of this company so that it can be sustainable and actually scale. So that's always that's something that we've absolutely struggled with, is having the right people in place, not striking deals that are unfavorable to the growth of the company over just quick revenue. Those are all things that we've had to try to figure out and navigate around. I think one thing that Topway and I are really excited about right now is that we've come up with really out-of-the-box ways to kind of hack growth without necessarily making some sacrifices for some of the things that we think are important to build. So I just think also just keeping an open mind and being creative about how you can grow your company quickly and still keep up to the pace that you need to keep up if you take investors' money, but then also be able to have, say no to the things that do not fit your core values. So I really think it's a balance based on the individuals that make up the company. And I do think that it's important for people to definitely know that raising money is not easy, and these guys are very lucky. Sorry. Well, I mean, not lucky, like, you know what I mean? The millions, you raise the millions, right? So then you're in the millions, which is a special subset of African companies, right? Why are you laughing? It's just how many companies have raised $1 million in the first year, right? So you can count them on your hand, right? So so it's not so we don't want to make it like it's something so common. But I think that if you fight and you're persistent and you have grit and you believe in what you're doing, and you're not afraid. I have no shame. I can go up to anybody and just be like, "Excuse me, how are you?" So get rid of that just kind of hierarchical thing that Nigeria has going on, and go talk to people that you might not think that you ever have the right to go up to, and go and just go after it. I think you'll be able to find your way. So that's how I'd answer your question.
In addition to that is, you talked about commitment. One thing it's very inexperienced and short-sighted entrepreneurs that raise their first money and close shop and pretty much start buying all the best cars in the world, and immediately they move from Ikorodu to Banana Island or the new one now. They already have properties there. It doesn't make sense, because when you're raising money from investor A, he wants to make money. Some investors, their exit may not be to wait for you to make profit. It may be, who's the next investor that's going to come on this deal after me, where you're gonna grow the business to a valuation that will allow this investor come in, and then you can raise more, and maybe I have my exit even before you make profit. So investors come in for different reasons. Most of them come in for this. The commitments on the deals usually are tied around milestones that you have created while pitching, that you want to do X, Y, and Z by this time, and then you'll be ready for the next round, or the business would have scaled to this point where profit makes sense. So, I'm speaking from my experience, and I'm sure it's the same experience with many entrepreneurs out there who know what they are doing, who you see raise the first round and raise the second round and then raise more money. Usually, you find them diligent to the milestones that were set. Even grants that we call free money. Nobody will give you a grant just because they like your face. They are usually milestones, and these grants don't just come all at once. So you hear somebody, I raised $2 million in grant. He may have raised to commit, the grant donor has committed 2 million, but maybe he's getting it in tranche one. You get 250 or you get 500. And when you meet the next milestone, you get the next 250. And when you meet the next milestone, and these are the details that we don't see out there. So commitments are there. Short-sighted founders are the ones that mess it up in the first instance and start doing things beyond the milestone. If your milestone was there to buy a car, then okay, we don't have a problem. But I don't have many investors who will invest that you should go and start changing your whole lifestyle. Investors want to invest enough for you to continue to be hungry enough to chase the dream. No investor will invest at a point where you just pretty much deviate from the core of what you originally set out to do. So those are things that are hidden in the commitment. And those are milestones that are set out there. Usually what you will notice is maybe, so now they're employing more people because they've raised more money, because there's a bigger vision, because there's a bigger milestone. I use farm crowding, for instance. Our milestone to raise the next funding wasn't supposed to be now. But what was it supposed? Our goal for the next funding is not supposed to happen around now, but we've met our milestone for that goal next year in July. And so when I was pitching, I was telling investors, all the milestones that we've set, we've crushed everything. We're exceeding our goals 18 months ahead. It's time to take this the next level, and that's why we're raising again. You understand? So maybe I just make that clear. And this is why you will find the experienced founders, the experienced entrepreneurs, most of them, watch them, they don't change their lifestyle. It is most times maybe first timers or those that have, like I say, short sight, that just change their lives.
Sir, Samuel.
I'll
Simon,
suggest.
you're the last.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll be the last.
Let me find out whether he even wants to say something.
Oh, cool.
I want to say something. It's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so just one last thing. When you are bringing other people's money into your business, be ready to invite other people's opinions. Africa is got money this year, and this is the first time the founders who have been running a business for 8 years and they have become like family are inviting an IFC to their board, are inviting an Orange Ventures to their board. And please note, while you might not like how the conversation starts to look at this point, they didn't come to play. Also look at the good side, which is they will bring in further structures to help you achieve your goals faster.
Okay, sir.
So I mean, talking about responsibilities, profit, scale, all that stuff. From what I've seen from a lot of other founders and from just general people in the market, as a business, you're pursuing one or two things. You're either pursuing scale or you're pursuing profitability. You typically cannot pursue both simultaneously because scale means you're going to spend a lot of money. Profitability means you're not going to spend a lot of money, or if you're spending, you're making a lot more money than you're spending. But typically, when you're scaling a business aggressively, you're typically spending a lot of money in like capital expenses, a lot of sunk costs that you will not get the money back like in a short period of time. So when we talk about responsibilities, fundraising, where the money goes, things like that, you need to think about that. So what am I pursuing? Am I pursuing profit? Am I pursuing skill? I'll tell you right off the bat right now, we're pursuing skill. We pursued profit for the first 2.5 years. We've shown that we can be profitable, right? Once we start to deploy a lot of capital to scale, that goes through the window, because how are you going to be profitable when you have spent 200 million on like 100 or 200 motorcycles to roll out? Who is paying that? That's a scam now. Where do you want to scam it from? Do you know what I'm saying? So that's one or two things. At the same time, talking about responsibilities. So how you raise your round initially determines if you're able to raise more capital. So there are things called liquidation preferences, like full ratchet, half ratchets, convertibles, common shares, preferential shares, those kind of different things. If you have terrible liquidation preferences in the seed round, best believe that any investor who's coming in your Series A will be getting at least those same liquidation preferences. So as a founder, you can get to a point where you've raised $1 billion, sell your company for $10 billion, and you will not make any money because of this kind of terms. Go and read venture deals. So that it sounds like I'm selling the book, but you actually need to read and learn about that stuff. Because when we were raising our seed round, we got multiple term sheets. And there was one that we saw and we said, blood of Jesus, and moved our hands from it, right? And there was another one where we're willing to have a conversation. Now, that first term sheet didn't mean anything bad by it. We just felt that it was so anti-founder that we weren't even interested in having a conversation, right? You want to give us a term sheet, completely revamp that term sheet. Let's see if we can have a conversation. Because there was one thing where you also have to figure out, as you're fundraising, talking to investors, etc., there are a lot of people who are going to waste your time, especially in this Lagos. You know, they will carry you to Echo, Atlantic, you drink Coke, you drink wine, give you cocktails, scatter your head. And then at the end, the guy is talking that, I don't really have money to invest right now. Maybe let's talk down the line, etc. Funds do it as well. So typically, there's a rule of thumb for us. If I'm spending 30 minutes with you, you're giving me $5,000. If I'm spending more than 30, this was for seed round, of course. Now you have to be giving me big boy money, you know what I'm saying? If we're having a second meeting, that second meeting we're conversing, and at the end of that second meeting, it should be pretty clear to me that if we have another meeting, you're going to be sort of committing to giving me money. If after 2 meetings, it doesn't look like you're going to give me money, there's nothing you want to talk to me that will allow me have a third meeting with you. I'm just not going to do it. If you want to talk to me, no, let's talk over the phone. There's Skype, there's FaceTime. But I'm not going to spend another 30 minutes on the phone with you, because you have to think about it. There's an opportunity cost, right? There's a lot of money looking for a lot of companies to put money into, so you also have to be efficient about your time. Otherwise, you'll raise money forever, right? So you need to decide if you're pursuing profit or scale, right? You also need to determine if an investor is serious or not. One way to determine is how many deals are you doing a year? An investor who says they're pretty active should be at least doing 1 deal a month, right? In Nigeria, let's call it 6 deals a year, so 1 every 2 months, right? What is your average check size? If an investor's average check size is $50,000 and you're trying to raise $3 million, that person is still very far from you, right? You need to be looking at somebody who's in an average check size of $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, right? So you talk about bringing people to the table. Imagine managing 15 different investors in your company at just the seed round. And then Series A, you're managing another 10. That's 25 total, right? And then Series B, it kind of goes on and on and on. It's a mess. Before you know what's happening, you're running a private company that feels like a public company because Amaka woke up this morning and said that she wanted to disappoint you with her email. Do you get the point I'm making? And it just goes on and on and on. So typically you want to have, seed round, it's nice to have a lot of different people. Try as much as possible to try and get an institutional player in there because they help you with like thinking about your terms, thinking about follow-on investment, etc. Follow-on rounds, you definitely want to keep to like 3 to 5 people maximum so that way you can gain the value that you're required to gain. You can talk to people and actually get a lot of value and time and all that. And beyond that, when you're talking to investors or looking at a group of investors you want to come on board in terms of like requirements, etc., you don't look for people who are just going to give you money. You talk about regulation. Regulation is a network-based thing. You need to know people who can do introductions and talk to people. And in our market like Nigeria, people at a certain caliber, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, etc., a 25-year-old will not introduce me to a 60-year-old man and will take me seriously no matter who that person is, even if it's his son. They will be in that category of our children's friends. Do you understand? For them to take you seriously, somebody at that level needs to be in that introduction, which is also where your fundraising comes in. You want to have specific people in there based on the kind of value that they can bring to the table.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for them. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have come to the end of the show tonight, and thank you guys so much for being a great audience, and I hope you learned a lot. And on Friday, we are having another panel session here, that's hosted by Business Insider, titled What Local... You want to take a picture? Okay. Panelists, please, can you guys come back up for a picture? Thank you. Okay, so we have another event here on Friday at 3 p.m. What foreign investors look for in local startups, hosted by Business Insider. So we'll be expecting you guys here again on Friday.